Hey everyone, this is Joel at Hamina, and in this video, I'm going to show you like an overview of how to use Hamina Network Planner. Now, this video could be useful to you in a couple of different ways. First off, if you want to evaluate Hamina Network Planner and see if it's the right tool for you, then this video should be a good way to do that. I'm just going to give you an overview of what it's like to do a project, maybe a couple of different projects from start to finish in the tool, hitting most of the major features. Not every single one, because we'd be here for hours doing that, but we'll hit all the major ones. The second way that this video might be useful to you is if you just want to see how to use it. If you're picking it up for the first time and you would like to sit down with somebody at Hamina and see how do I use this tool, then you're in the right place. This video should take care of you. So what we're looking at right now is this is a project that I've already got completed, basically done in Hamina Network Planner, just running on my MacBook Air in Google Chrome. You can use this on any modern browser, any modern operating system, Windows, Linux if you want to, no problem. But I happen to be using it on Mac OS with Google Chrome here, but anything will work just fine. Anything modern, kind of desktop OS based, you'll be fine. So in this project, let me kind of show you really quickly like what you can expect to see when a project is completely done, when you've got all the different pieces in place. So this particular project is of our office. So I'm actually sitting right here. This is our little AP wall right there. And this project has a simulation. So you can see that I've drawn in walls and I've defined basically like where the concrete pillars are and everything. And right now, as I move an access point around, this is running in a simulation. So that is the simulation tab in Hamina Network Planner. So that's where you're going to do what we would call predictive modeling, or sometimes we just call it like network design or virtual network design. Now, the other thing that I've done with this particular project is I've also added site survey data. Now, I did that with a separate product called Hamina OnSite. So this is an app that you run on an iPad or an iPhone, and you plug in our measurement device and you walk around and you basically gather site survey data. And so you can see all these different paths here. These are all the different places that I walked. I did that a few days ago. These are all the different places that I walked to build out this coverage map. And if we select individual APs, so we could say, if we click on just that AP there, you can see that's its coverage area, that's this AP's coverage area, and so on and so forth. The act of collecting this data, we call a site survey. So we went on site, we gathered the data. So keep in mind that the simulation tab is just that. It's a simulation. It's an educated guess, whereas the site survey is the real world results. And so typically you would do a site survey to validate the network, to make sure that the network that you designed and deploys actually meets the requirements that you set for it. So that's the survey tab. Now the last one, this is a feature that's currently in a feature preview state. So what we can do is we can actually connect Hamina Network Planner to our cloud vendor. We support Arista, Cisco Meraki, Juniper, and Ruckus. This happens to be our Juniper infrastructure here. So I'll just continue on to the site settings here and kind of reconnect everything together. I think the API key must have changed or something like that. But now you kind of get to see like what it looks like to set it up for the first time. So now what we're looking at is we're looking at the current running configuration of the network here inside the simulation, inside the predictive model. And so so you can see like there's my coverage area from that AP or that AP or that AP. And this is all based on the current transmit powers, the current channels, things like that. We can even look and see like how busy are all of the different coverage cells in here. Now I've got my thresholds cranked down super low here, so it turns yellow at 10% utilization inside a coverage cell. That's not very realistic, but it makes it pop really nicely. And we can see that this AP right here, we're seeing about 10% channel utilization in the 5 gigahertz band inside that coverage cell. That's what's happening live in the network right now. Some of the team is having a meeting over in our meeting room right here, and I'm sure they're associated to this AP. In fact, look, 5 clients in the 5 gigahertz band, 3 clients in the 6 gigahertz band. We can even go and look and see what clients, like where everybody is connected. So, for example, our boardroom, Apple TV, is associated to that AP, and we've got our Apple TV in one of our other meeting rooms is associated to this AP, and so on and so forth. So, like for example, let's go find my laptop. So let's go look for Joel Joel's M3 MacBook. Yep, that's where I am. I'm associated to that AP because this is the room that I'm in. So anyway, I feel like I'm getting way off track here. I just wanted to show you sort of the final completed state of an entire project in Hamina, where you've got the simulation, you've got the survey, and even the live view, like what the network actually looks like right now, all in one project. But let's build most of this from the ground up in a fresh project, and we'll do something bigger with like multiple floors and things like that. So I'm just going to click on create new project, and I'm going to call this one, I need a creative name. Let's just call it demo video project. Oh, that is terrible. Come on, Joel. You have got to come up with better names than this, but it's fine. It'll work for this. Okay, so the first thing that we can do here is we can bring in a floor plan. So typically this is going to be like a JPEG or a PNG or a PDF or a CAD file or something like that. So I'm going to bring in a PDF and show you some of the fun things that you can do with a PDF. So we'll bring in this 3-floor PDF. Now, since this particular PDF has 4 pages, each one of those pages is going to come in as a separate map. And we can see them all listed right here. In fact, I'll rename them really quick. So this one is floor 1. And then this one here, we'll switch to that really quick. This one's floor 2, so we'll just rename it to that. By the way, this is something I strongly recommend doing right as you bring the project in. You know, get your project organized, get all the floors named really nicely. Now, this floor, this actually isn't a floor. This is like something showing some of the outside area, I think like the playground and things like that. So let's just delete that one really quick to take it out. It was just one of the pages of the PDF that we just didn't need. And then this one here is floor 3. So now we can see we've got floor 1, 2, and 3, all 3 of them as separate maps. So then the next thing that we need to do is we need to set the scale for the project. Now, this is really important because we use this for things like calculating free space path loss and cable lengths and all that stuff. This is really a really important thing. Now, I happen to know that from this pillar to this pillar is 60 meters. So what we'll do is I'll just right click on this pillar here. So just a single click there. And then I'll come over to the edge of this pillar and click again. And then I'll type in 60 for 60 meters and hit set scale. And there we go. Now the scale of the floor plan is set. So then from here, there's a couple of different ways that we could go. If this was a JPEG or a PNG or a bitmap or something like that, then what I would start doing now is drawing in my walls. And so to do that, I'm going to go to the walls tool, and we have built in a bunch of common, basically common wall types that you might see out in the wild. This is meant to be a starting point. So for example, we've got one in here called concrete. And if you look at this wall profile, it has 15 dBs of attenuation. So that means that in the 5 gigahertz band, when 5 gigahertz hits that wall, it's going to drop by 15 dB before it exits the other side of the wall. Now, this is a good starting point. It's not the exact value for concrete everywhere. You might find that your concrete walls are 10 dB or 30 dB. Yeah, and so there are some ways that you can measure your environment and find out what values to plug in here, but that's out of scope of this video. I just wanted you to know that this was here. So for example, around the, maybe around like this stairwell right here, I'm just gonna zoom into that. I'm just gonna pinch to zoom in on this really quick. And then we'll grab our concrete profile and we'll just draw in our stairwell here. So I'm doing left click, and then right click to stop. Now on the front of this, that looks like it's probably drywall to me. So I'm gonna hit the D key here to select drywall. So there's D to select drywall. And then I'll go left click, I'll try again, left click, right click to stop. And then we can start drawing in some of our other walls, like all these guys out here. So left click, right click to stop. So, you know, maybe for like a long wall like this, what I'll do is I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit here, is we'll just kind of go through and trace it all out. I'll hit the C key to switch to concrete. I'm going to zoom out so I can snap to this corner over here. So we snap to it like that. D to go back to drywall, right click to stop, left click, right click to stop, left click, right click to stop. You see how that's going. So I find that for a large building like this, you can see we've already got like a sixth of this floor plan done. This doesn't take very long at all. Drawing walls doesn't scare me at all, doesn't bother me at all. And so, you know, this is just no problem for me to go in and do. But there's a trick we can use here. So remember that when I imported this CAD file, ooh, by the way, really quick, before we switch away from that, check it out. We can look at the walls that we just drew. We can look at those in 3D. I just wanted you to see that really quickly. Since we used a PDF file, This PDF has vector graphics that are embedded into it in separate layers. In many ways, this PDF behaves exactly like a CAD file, like a DXF or DWG. So if you have a DXF file or a DWG file or a PDF that has vector graphics, that part's really important, you can actually have Hamina automatically draw the walls. So I'm just going to hit Command A to select everything, the delete key to delete all the walls I just drew, and then we're going to go to the Auto Draw Walls tool. Now here, we can scrub through all the different layers of the file, and we can assign materials to each layer. So for example, let's start with the wall layer. You can see it's all lit up in yellow here because I'm mousing over it in the list. We'll click on wall, and I'm going to say that that's all drywall. And then I'll mouse over the doors and click on those. So it just selected the door layer here. So there's our doors. And for all of these, let's do something really fancy. I'm going to do glass doors for these. It's going to look really cool. That's the main reason. And then there's also this layer here that's just labeled window. I'm going to do floor to ceiling glass on all of these. So there we go. So you can see here that I have assigned those materials to those 3 layers. Now there's some other layers here that you could assign, like maybe maybe you could do the pillars and things like that. I'm going to leave those out for now. We're just going to do those 3. So I'll click import here, and now Hamina is going to turn this into a skeleton, and it's going to go through and draw all those walls in for us. So if I select the edit tool again and hit the 3D button, there we go. There's all of our walls drawn in. So if you have a CAD file, like a DXF or a DWG or a PDF with vector graphics, and if everything is spread out on the different layers correctly, this is something that you can do. Doesn't always work, but it can be a really good time saver if the CAD or if the PDF file is set up correctly. But if all else fails, you can manually draw them. That's what I do most of the time for like kind of my real projects and things. Okay, awesome. So now we have our walls drawn in here. The next thing that I will typically do is I will define the scope of the project. But before we do that, let's drop an AP in here really quick. So I'm going to go to the Access Points tool. And now let's go pick an AP. Now we looked at Mist a few minutes ago. Let's pick on somebody else now. Let's do Cisco Meraki. So I'll type in Meraki here. We'll click on them, and let's go do one of the new 9176 APs. So here we go. There's the D1, their directional antenna. There's the antenna pattern for it right there. Here's the 9176, just your Omni that goes on the ceiling. Let's select that, and I'll just drop one into one of the rooms here. If I go back to the edit tool, we can click on it and click and drag it to move it around, and you can see that now we're predicting how the signal is going to propagate through our building here. And everything that's green is negative 65 dBm or better. You can see that down here in the mouse over pane, or the down in the legend that has the mouse over inspector there. So yeah, looking pretty good. Now, if we want to place more APs, we can just go back and grab the access point tool again, and it's just basically click, 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 and I mean, that's basically it as far as placing access points goes. Now, I won't get into, how we decide exactly where to put APs, like what's good design strategies and things like that. That's a whole 4-day class, and we have a guy that offers those for us. We have a third-party trainer that will teach you all about how to do proper network design. But as far as placing APs, it's just a matter of clicking on the map. So now that we've got the APs here, notice that we're predicting a lot of coverage like outside of the building and stuff. That can be really distracting. And so one thing that I like to do is to define the scope of the project using the scope tool. So what I can do with this is I can just click and drag to make a square like that. And there we go. We've done a scope zone. Or you can also draw it like walls, where we'll go grab that scope zone tool again, and you can go left click, left click, left click, and let's see, there's the corner right there. And basically, I'm just going to go around and just scope out where the network is. And notice that I'm doing things like going around the lifts and the stairwells and things like that. You can decide exactly how precise you want to be with this, but that's something I'll typically do is I will define the scope of the project, and I'll really specifically choose what we're going to worry about Wi-Fi for, what we're not going to worry about Wi-Fi for. So for example, down here, notice that, let's zoom in on it a bit here. Notice that down here, I took this stairwell out of the scope of the project, although I didn't do it up here. Let's get those out of scope as well. So to do this, I'm actually going to turn off the wall layer. They're still there, don't worry. The layer's just turned off right now. And I'll go grab the scope tool, and we'll just go left click, left click, left click, left click, left click, and right click to stop. And that was automatically marked as an out of scope zone. So let's do the same thing here. continually left clicking on things and right click, and there we go. Now that's out of scope as well. Now, if I hover my mouse over our legend here, you can see that 99% of what is in scope right now is meeting this high signal strength requirement. So that is negative 65 dBm or better. Of course, you can change these values. Most of our users do. You can change which frequency band you're looking at. You can do all that stuff right here. But negative 65 dBm, yeah, that's a pretty good starting place, and that's why we made it the default in Hamina. Cool. So yeah, we've got our scope defined here. So I'm actually going to hide our scope zones really quick just to get them out of the way. So they're still there, just hidden right now, and that's done right here using this drop-down menu where you can choose layers. So yeah, let's see. Let's move on to the next phase of this project, and let's start thinking about the other floors that we have, to work with in this project. So to do that, I'm going to go to the Align Floors tool. So here we go. Here's the Align Floors tool, and now we can bring any of the maps in the project. That's the same list as right here. We can bring those into our project. So we'll go. There's floor 1, there's floor 2, and there's floor 3. So now what we can do is we can align these floors. We're going to basically do a transform to say, how do these floors align with each other? How do they stack up? And so what I'll do is I'll just grab the yellow floor here, that's floor 2, and we'll just drag it over the top of the floor like that. And what I've done is I have aligned these concrete pillars in the corners and also the stairs. Those are great things to look at. So there we go. Got those 2 floors lined up. Let's line up the 3rd floor. So we'll select that, drag it into place, and there we go. Now, by the way, one thing that I didn't have happen here is I didn't have to scale each map individually. That's just due to the way that I brought in the PDF file and dragged all the floors in. It's really nice when they just line up like that, but you can grab these handles in the corners and you can actually scale the floors up and down, and you can basically scale them to make them all match the current floor. They're going to use the black floor, the currently selected floor right here. That's going to be their reference. That's kind of the source of truth. And you can change which floor is the source of truth by changing floors. If we click on floor 3, for example, notice that it is now the floor with the black dot next to it. That's now our reference point if we start moving other floors around. So that's kind of how that works. Okay, cool. So now let's go back down to floor 1. So here we go. Here's all of our APs on floor 1, looking good. Let's go to floor 2. And now you can actually see where those APs are on the floor below. That's what this little icon means. It's an AP pin, but it says that it's downstairs. So you see little stairs, little down arrow. I really like that icon. I think it's pretty cool. Our UI guy came up with that, and I think it's pretty good stuff. So yeah, we can see how the RF is propagating from the floor below up here to the floor above. So let's add some more APs. Now notice that when I open up the access points tool, it's just going to copy whatever my settings were for the last AP. It remembered that I placed Meraki 9176 and that I had it in the tri-band mode and that the ceiling height's 2.5 and all that stuff. Like, it just remembers all that from the last thing that I selected. So now we can just start placing some more. Oh, I forgot something. Totally forgot something. Notice how more or less circular this coverage pattern is. We didn't draw any walls, so we need to add walls in here. That's really important for a good model. This isn't really scripted, by the way. I'm just kind of going off the cuff here. I hope you're okay with that. So yeah, let's go find the layers that we care about. That looks like the wall layer. Yep, that one's the wall layer. So D for drywall. I just hit the D key. I am going to include the concrete columns in this one, so we'll hit concrete for the columns. All of these, this is all glass. So I'm going to do glass for those. And then for the doors, once again, I'm going to do the glass doors because they look really cool in the 3D view. Makes for a nice demo, So we'll hit import and let it bring those in. Let's check it out in 3D. How's it look? Oh yeah. Yep. Looks totally good. Let's go up to floor 3 and do the same thing. Okay. No walls. So we go back to our auto draw walls tool. Once again, hit the D key to assign drywall. Click on the pillars, C key to assign concrete, click on the windows, and I don't think I have a hotkey for that one, or do I? Yeah, it's W for window, duh. And then we'll do the doors. I'm gonna make those all be glass, and there we go. We've got those assigned. They're all colored in pink now. We'll hit import, wait just a second for that to draw, switch to the 3D view for dramatic effect. Bam, there's all of our walls. Love it. Like I said earlier, this doesn't work for every single project. This isn't going to work for every PDF or CAD file, but when it does work, it's a really nice time saver. But at the same time, I don't mind manually drawing these. All right, cool. So let's go back down to floor 2 and let's place some APs. AP, oh yeah, I'm just going to kind of scatter these around here. basically just making sure that we have good primary coverage everywhere. I'm not going to worry about secondary coverage for the purpose of this demo. We'll just do primary. Yeah, looking good. Let's go up to floor 3. And, one more thing that we need to do in floor 3. Check this out. See in the middle of the building here? There's this area that's marked void. So this particular building has an empty space in the middle. It's basically like an atrium that goes up and down in the center. It might be open out of the roof. I'm not totally sure, but there's at least this open space in this floor. So to factor that into Hamina, we can use the floor hole tool. Now this draws just like any other area, but we'll just go click, drag, and release to make a hole in the floor. And there we go. So now let's place our APs up here really quick. So we'll go to access points. We'll just drop these. I like to start in the conference rooms because, that's where people are doing like video sharing and things like that. So we can drop those into conference rooms and then sort of like fill in all the other areas. That's one strategy. It's not the only strategy, but it's a strategy. We'll see if it pays off. So there we go. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And I won't bother with scope zones and things like that. You already saw how to do those, but I would scope each floor individually and all that. Yeah, okay, this looks pretty great. Now, to visualize this hole in the floor, let's put one AP right here, right next to the hole in the floor so you can really see how it works. If I switch back down to floor 2 and I click on this AP that's upstairs, see him right there? That's our AP that's upstairs right now. If I click on that, now you can see how that RF is coming down through the open space down to this floor. So that's the hole in the floor in action. Cool, this looks pretty good. Although one thing that we're missing right now is we're missing some switches and some wires for all these APs. Putting APs on the floor plan, it's great. It's wireless. How hard could it be without wires? But really, we need to power these APs. We need to give them some data, obviously. And pretty happy to say that we have support for this built into Hamina. You can do this directly in Hamina if you want to. You don't have to, but you certainly can. So the way that switching and cabling works is, first off, you can place switches with the switch or IDF or client tool. So if I click on that and we click on the switch option here, we can say, okay, this is like a 24-port switch with a 350 watt power budget. So it has 350 watts of PoE, and let's just drop it in this little closet right here. So there we go. Now you can see that this switch is now connected to everything in the building. And when I say everything in the building, I really do mean everything in the building. We need 1,400 watts for this switch. Ouch. We're going to need some more switching to make things work in this building. So I'm going to make a little change to all of our APs really quickly. I'm going to select all the APs. The way I'm going to do it is I'm going to hit Command A. That might be Control A if you're on Windows. And that just selected everything in the map. And I'm going to click on Access Points. So now we've just selected all the APs that are on this floor. And I'm going to say that they're going to connect to a switch from a specific floor, and that's going to be floor 1, switch 1. There we go. So now they're all connected to the switch that's on this specific floor. Let's go up to floor 2, and let's add another switch in here. So let's put one in right here. Let's go add another one on floor 3. So we'll put one in. I don't know where the IDF is. Actually, I do. It's right here. There's where it should be right there. And now let's tell it to connect everything on this floor to our switch on this floor. So we'll say from specific floor, switch 3, there we go. Go downstairs to floor 2, select everything again, click on access points, go down here to switch from specific floor, there we go. Now we're only connecting APs to switches that are on the current floor. And you can see that because of these little dots that route from the access point over here to our switch. Now, one thing that's really tempting to do at this stage is to look at those dotted lines and think cables. We do technically call them cables in Hamina at this stage. If you click on the switch and click on power and cabling details, we'll show you, like how many meters of cabling it'll take to wire all of those APs to this specific switch. We're looking at about 350 meters right now, and we do that by calculating the X, Y, and then Z distance up to the AP, plus 20% of the cable length. Now we can refine this a little bit more. I think that's pretty good for back of napkin math, right? That's pretty good to say, like, yeah, to get to AP1, we're looking at 50-ish meters of cabling. That's, good for estimates and things like that. If you want to make this a little bit more precise, there's a brand new feature. We just added this. It's called the cable trays feature. This is a Hamina Network Planner Plus feature, so you need Plus for this one. But basically what you can do with this is you can go through and draw in where your cable trays are. Now notice, let me turn the heat map off really quick so you can see a little bit better. Notice that around these cable trays, there's this blue area that we call the magnet distance. And so any APs that are within that blue area will get sucked into the cable tray and then routed back. Notice that this guy right here, not in the cable tray right now. If I actually nudge him this way, he's now within the cable tray magnet. Or we can even just boost that distance a little bit to pull it in there, and it routes into the tray and around to our switch. So here we could go through and say, there we go. There's all of our APs now routing through that switch. Now, what if there's no switch down here? What if the switch is up on the second floor? Well, there's another feature that, again, this is a Network Planner Plus thing, where we can actually do a cable riser to get the cables up to the switch on the second floor. So we'll go to cable risers, and I'm just going to say, to the above floor only. So we're just going to puncture through to the floor above. And now I'll select all my APs here. So there's all my access points. They're all just going to connect to the nearest device, which looks like, yeah, it's just the switch above. So actually this one looks like it's taking a shorter route. So yeah, let's fix that. I'm going to go to access points, and we'll go switch from a specific floor, floor 2, switch 2, bam. Now they're all routing into the tray up to floor 2, and then to our switch with, surprise, now it's overwhelmed. And so, maybe it's time to bump it up to a 48 port or a 48 port switch with, maybe 800 watts. It's got dual power supplies. Well, still not enough. Time for an IDF. Let's do 2 48 port switches with 800 watts each. And there we go. Now we've got our switches all happy. Although now this is the point when we probably want to do our cable trays on this separate floor. Cool. I think I think it's probably enough for the wired side of things. We won't do the other floors because it's the same thing again. You know how that works. So cool. Let's hide all of our network equipment just to get it out of the way. And one last thing I want to talk about before we move on and look at a slightly different project is I want to talk about the different heat maps that are in Hamina. So first off is coverage. That's what we've been looking at. This is primary coverage from the loudest access point. You can choose between 2.4, 5, or the 6 gigahertz band. I personally like to look at one band at a time. I like to look at just one band and see what's going on with that particular band. The next visualization is secondary coverage. So this one shows us anywhere that we have 2 or more access points covering things. So for example, everywhere that's green here, that's where 2 or more access points are covering above neg 65. So for example, back here in this room, notice in this room back here, sure, I've got 2 APs covering it. You can see it in the legend and the mouse over inspector here. Access point 1 is negative 47. Access point 7 is negative 72. So there's only one AP covering that. If access point 1 or 7 goes down, we lose half of this room. It's now below our coverage threshold. Wi-Fi will probably still work, but it's not meeting your requirement anymore. Another way to think about secondary coverage is let's just select 2 APs. Everywhere that's green right now, I just held down shift, clicked on 2 APs. Everywhere that's green is where we have it's negative 67 dBm. I thought it was neg 65. Negative 67 dBm or better. Everywhere that's green, neg 67 dBm or better. That's basically the overlap between those 2 coverage cells above that threshold. That's what that means. There's another one called tertiary coverage. I'm not going to get into it. It's for the real-time location services guys. Most of us that don't do RTLS, we typically don't touch that. Signal to noise ratio is how much signal do we have above the background noise. Since it's a simulation, you can change how much noise there is. So if you have measured this, then you can put that into the simulation. So that's a good thing. And then, of course, there's data rate. So this is the maximum achievable data rate based on the capabilities of the access points. how many spatial streams they have, what's their phi types they support, those kinds of things. I can't say I look at this one a lot. I really don't look at data rate a whole lot. And then the one that I really wanted to show you is interference. So this shows us anywhere that we have co-channel interference or co-channel contention. Basically, this shows us anywhere that we've got two APs that are on the same channel. So if I hover my mouse here, notice these two, they turn red right now. And if we look in the mouse over inspector down here, you can see, yeah, access point 4 and access point 23, they're both on channel 124. They both have well, at least the one here has a 40 megahertz wide channel, and so there is adjacent channel interference there. So Hamina will actually run a channel plan for you automatically. If I visit floor 2 and we, for example, nudge an AP around, it'll automatically rerun a channel plan and try to reduce the co-channel interference that's on the network. So let's go up and do it again on floor 3. We'll go nudge something here, have it rerun the channel plan, and there we go. So we're looking at, I haven't marked off a scope zone, but even without marking out the scope zone, we're looking at 93% of this floor has no co-channel interference. That's not bad. That's okay. Now, you can influence which channels Hamina will use for its automatic channel plan by going to the channel settings right here. And you can say, oh yeah, but we have a client device that doesn't support Uni2C, so we better take that one out. So we just took all those channels out of the channel plan. We can hit save, and now it'll rerun the channel plan again with those constraints and try to find something that works. And it looks like it did a pretty good job here of getting rid of that interference. Got a little bit right here, but not too bad. Cool. Let's switch gears a little bit now, and I want to do another project. This one, I'm going to come up with a really creative name this time. Demo video project warehouse. Oh yeah, killing it with the creativity today. We'll put it in Finland so it knows our regulatory domain. That's where I'm located right now. And we'll hit save. And this time, I'm going to bring in a little warehouse. So this is just a JPEG, the simplest of floor plans. And first thing, of course, that we need to do is set the scale. You remember this. Click, click. It's 20 meters from top to bottom. Hit set scale. And then we need to draw some walls. So let's go grab the wall tool. Let's draw some concrete around the edges really quickly here. So we'll go left click, left click, left click, left click. Ow, I moved a little bit. I'm going to try again. Command Z, left click, left click, left click, right click to stop. Looks good. One thing I did is I didn't really draw this wall on the line. So I'm going to grab the edit tool and just click and drag it up like that. There we go. That looks a lot better. All right, cool. Next thing that we need to do is let's draw in our drywall. So we'll just go through and draw these in really quick. Now, one thing that you may notice that I'm doing here is I exercise the zoom controls a lot. I zoom in and out like crazy. My mouse I'm using an Apple Magic Mouse, very controversial mouse. Some people absolutely hate it. Some people love it. I'm kind of in the mostly love it camp. And then for the zooming in and out, what I will typically do is I'll just reach up and use the trackpad on my MacBook. So I'm doing 2-finger scrolling and all that stuff. Someday I'll get a fancy camera rig so you can actually see it in action. So I want to get really precise on this wall to keep it from snapping. So I'll just zoom in like that, and there we go. Zoom back out. We'll go in and grab this wall. So the big thing to keep in mind here is exercising those zoom controls can help you out on this stuff a lot. It really makes it nice. And by the way, one other thing I need to mention is that down here, right here, you can change the mouse mode that you're using. So right now, I am essentially in trackpad mode, and so the Magic Mouse, it really behaves more like a trackpad than a mouse because it has this touch-sensitive surface on the top that you can pan around with. So you see me panning as I move my finger around like that. If you're using a traditional mouse with a scroll wheel, which I have a Logitech that I like to use sometimes, click this button right here. That now switches that whatever the scroll wheel is on it to now zoom in and out. And then when I'm doing this, one of my favorite ways to pan around, since now I don't have my panning tool built into my mouse, you can hold down the space bar and move your mouse around. So I'm just moving the mouse, not clicking and dragging. And it's kind of like it's like a third or fourth mouse button or something like that. You can also right click and pan around too. So, go check out our knowledge base. It's right up here. And there's a page that has all the mouse controls and keyboard shortcuts and stuff. Give that a read if you're having any trouble navigating around in maps. Okay, back to what we were doing. So here, I'm actually going to draw up a little warehouse here. So one thing that we need to do is we need to draw in the shelves. Now to draw those in properly, I am going to use attenuating objects. Now these work a little bit differently than walls. A wall is just basically a plane, and when the RF goes through it, we drop it by however many dB, 3 dB, 5 dB, 10 dB, depends on the material, depends on how you've defined it. With an attenuating object, these work a little bit differently. So I'm going to grab a warehouse shelf profile, and I'm just going to click and drag to make some rectangles here. One other thing you can do is grab the edit tool and hold down shift and go click, click. So we'll click on the edges to select those. There we go. And then hit Command C and Command V. And then I'll just grab my edit tool and I'll just basically click and drag those to move those into place. So grab one like that to move it down, grab one like that to move it down, and there we go. So that can speed things up if like you're in a warehouse or something like that. So now we've got these attenuating objects, and notice that they're an object. They can be any length, width, whatever. Let's go grab an AP really quick here. Who are we going to use? Who are we going to use this time? Let's see. For this one, I'm going to go back to Juniper Mist really quick. And let's do something with an external antenna connector. Let's just do an AP32E. So this has got an external antenna connector. We'll drop it in here. Let's go switch over to the 5 gigahertz band. No 6 gigahertz on this AP. That's fine. And we'll look at coverage. And here I've got an external antenna connected to it, which is this Exceltex antenna right here. Let's see, it's the 3444. So the 344-4. There we go. There's the pattern off of it. So yeah, it's just a nice omnidirectional antenna. Earlier we kind of scrolled through the AP list really fast. We've got everything in here. We've got Extreme, we've got Fortinet, we've got Grandstream. I didn't know we had Grandstream in there. Okay, somebody asked for another Grandstream today, and I told them, we don't have any in there yet, but I was wrong. It's in there. Anyway, lots and lots of vendors in here. If your AP is missing, like if there's an AP that you're designing with and it's not there, email us, support@hamina.com. We'll add it right away. We just need to get in touch with the vendor and get the antenna patterns and stuff. That's the part that usually takes a little bit. But the same goes for external antennas. We've got Exceltex, we've got Aruba, we've got Fortinet, we've got Ventev, we've got everything in here. So again, if something's missing, let us know. So let's take our AP and just put it right in the middle of our shelves. So notice that here with the walls, we just have that one-time hit of loss, right? Whereas with the attenuating objects, the length, the distance that the RF has to travel through that attenuating object will make it attenuate more. So for example, if I click on our warehouse shelf and we look at the profile, it loses 8 dB per meter. So every meter that the RF goes through it, we lose 8 dB. That's how those work. So these are great for more solid objects like shelves and things like that. You can see it doesn't get through the shelf this way, but it does get through the shelf this way, no problem. Okay, so now let's go back and let's look at our warehouse in 3D. How's it look? Well, earlier, you remember the walls were really short? We just drew a tall object on it. We just drew these shelves here. Those shelves, if we go look at the profile again, are 7.6 meters tall. And so now, if we go look at the concrete wall profile, this profile is set to ceiling height. What's the ceiling height? If it's a multi-floor building, you can define that exactly how tall each floor is. You can change them all individually. If it's a single floor structure like this, or if it's a map by itself that's not, in a building, it's just whatever the tallest object on the floor is. That becomes our ceiling height. And in this case, the tallest object is our warehouse shelves. So that's how tall it is. So let's play around with this a little bit. Let's go grab our access point tool again. So we'll bring in an AP, and let's just put this at 9 meters high. So let's change it to 9, hit enter. Notice that the coverage on the floor below the AP just got significantly worse. It's still meeting requirements, but it's not great. That's because we have an omnidirectional antenna way up there in the ceiling. Great coverage for Spider-Man, not great coverage for me. I didn't come up with that, by the way. That was our CEO founder, he came up with that ages ago. So now if we go back and look at it in 3D, notice that our concrete walls and our dry walls are now the same height as the AP because it's the tallest thing on the map. But one thing I want to do is let's fix up these dry walls really quick. They're way too tall. So I'll go modify the drywall profile, and I'm going to say the ceiling height or the top height of these is 3 meters. And we'll hit save. And now we go back and look at it in 3D. Boom. Now they're down where they should be at just 3 meters tall. So let's finish planning out this warehouse really quick. Now in a warehouse environment like this, I'm going to typically use directional antennas because I need to put the APs up high out of the reach of the forklifts. You don't want forklifts, shearing off your APs. And so we'll put them way up in the ceiling. And for these, let's go find a directional antenna. That would maybe point things down at the floor just a little bit. Let's see. I'm just kind of thumbing through finding these. Now, the Excel Text guys, they can tell you exactly which kind of antenna to use in an environment like this. So can Ventev, so can your vendor, if you're using, a first-party antenna from your vendor. I'm just picking one that looks good. So let's use this 245-47.3 here. That looks good. Looks fine. So now notice that it's directional. We can change the direction that it's pointing by moving this arrow around. Let's cover this area here first, and then let's give it 45 degrees of down tilt. So we'll say 45, and now the arrow points down a little bit, and now we have pretty good coverage down here on the floor. One other thing I want to do, though, is there's some shelves and things here. I really want to get those drawn in. Let's do that. So let's go to the attenuating objects tool, and I'm going to go to the modify pane here, and let's copy our warehouse shelf. So we'll hit duplicate, and I'll rename this one to short, get rid of the shortcut key, and I'm going to say that that's 2.5. It's about 8.2 feet tall. By the way, you can click anywhere where it says meter here. Click on it. You can go change it to feet. No problem. Let's make it purple so it stands out a little bit, and we'll hit save. And now we'll say that there's one here, and there's one here, and there's one here, and we've got one of those right here, and then one last one right here. So now, if we grab our AP, zoom out a little bit, if we grab our AP and start moving it around, you can see the shadows that appear behind those shelves. And if we look at this in 3D, you can actually see how tall those shelves are. This is maybe the best part about the 3D view, is you can actually validate that your geometry is correct. What did you put into the predictive model? Is it right? You can see it's totally right. It's good to go here. Oh, one thing I want to do is there's like some doors and windows and stuff here. Let's add those too. So I'm going to go to the wall tool again. I'm going to get the glass door tool. Let's just zoom in really close here. And I'm just going to draw right on top of this wall. Left click, right click to stop. W to switch to a window. There's a window right here. And we'll come down here. Right click to stop. By the way, I'm using the space bar to pan around. I love how precise and exact it is. Let's go back to our glass door. Put that there. This door here, probably not as fancy of a door. Maybe it's like a wooden door, so we'll just draw it in like that. Let's go do the windows around the front really quick. I won't do every single one just so I don't waste your time, but I just can't help myself. So we'll draw in these windows. Looks good. Let's do a couple more glass doors. Put one there, put one there. Perfect. Now, if we zoom out a little bit and we go look at this thing in 3D, you can actually see that now we've got windows there. So there's our windows into our office, and then if we go back here, you can see there's our windows and our glass doors, and they will make your predictive model 1% more accurate, just ever so slightly more accurate, but it sure looks cool, especially when you're showing this to a customer or something like that. Okay, let's finish this thing out. So I'll grab the access points tool. Remember, the last thing I selected was this guy right here. So if I grab the access points tool and start clicking again, it's just going to place the same thing again. It will automatically point things away from the wall for me, though. So if I put one there, see how it points it down the aisle? It just goes away from the wall as best it can. We'll put one here. Let's put one right here. We need one down this aisle, but I'm going to have to point it manually. And let's do one down this aisle too. And there we go. There's our little warehouse design with directional antennas and all of that. Nice. Okay. So now what I think I want to do is real quick, I want to show you what an outdoor design might look like. I'm not going to do one from scratch for the sake of time, but I just want you to see it so you can see how we handle it in Hamina. So I've actually got a project here. This is actually the city of Hamina in Finland. So like Fiskars, actually I have a pair right here. Fiskars scissors, this is a village in Finland, so that's where Fiskars gets its name. Nokia, another village in Finland. Hamina, another village in Finland, and you're looking at it. This is Hamina. So what I've done here is I just grabbed some outdoor imagery from Apple Maps. That's where the clearest shot of Hamina was from. And I uploaded it here and I scaled it. And then I went through and drew attenuating objects to create all these different buildings and structures. One thing I want to do really quickly, I've been meaning to do this for ages, is I'm going to go into my 2-floor profile here. So it's 12 meters high. I'm going to turn off transparent 3D. I don't want it to be transparent 3D. There we go. That looks a lot better. So yeah, this is kind of a little model of the city, and I've placed some APs around in here to simulate outdoor Wi-Fi. So let's switch over to Wi-Fi, and we're looking at primary coverage right now. And yeah, we've got all of these Cisco 9167s all kind of scattered around here, all providing outdoor coverage. And then another thing that I've done here, this is a Hamina Network Planner Plus feature, is I've also done some private cellular here. So if we switch to 4G, 5G, and that is the coverage that we're expecting to get from this AP. This is a Nextivity G41 here. I think that's actually a repeater, so let's switch it to something else. Let's do like a cradle point. Let's do a cradle point 2405. Now, this building, let's say that's on top of the building, so let's go up to like maybe 12 meters. Ooh, more than that, 16. I'm just eyeballing it here. I really should go look at the profile and just see what it is. But we could place this on the building, and we could even, point this directional antenna down the street, for example, to cover that. And then we could, maybe let's add another one. So let's go back into access points here, add another one, and we'll point it down this way. So we kind of get a couple of different cells there going off of that AP. Oh, here's a surprise one I accidentally placed right here. Let's drop that there, and there we go. So that's just a quick example of how you can do an outdoor design with Hamina Network Planner. I wouldn't say this is our strong point. This isn't the main thing that we do. We don't do like terrain mapping and things like that. But if you have a relatively flat environment where you can draw attenuating objects to create buildings and things like that, then yeah, you can totally do like small outdoor areas like this. I've seen Wi-Fi vendors do entire towns for Wi-Fi with Hamina Network Planner, and they went through and put APs on all the light poles and things like that. So yeah, you can absolutely use it for this kind of thing, no problem at all. Cool. Let's go back to our original building that we had done at first. And I'm going to switch back over to coverage in the 5 gigahertz band. And yeah, looks pretty good. And let's talk about the reporting side of things a little bit. So there's a few different ways that you can share this project, a few different ways that you can get reports and things like that done with this. So the first thing you can do is you can just share the project with another user. So for example, I could share it with Jerry at hamina.com and hit invite. Now, Jerry has an invite sitting in his inbox, and if Jerry accepts that, he can get into Hamina and look at the plan here. Now, if Jerry has a subscription to either Planner or Planner Plus, he'll be able to get in here and do all the same things that I did. And I'll see any of his updates if I just refresh the browser. It pulls in the most recent version of the project. If Jerry was a cheapskate, which he's not, he didn't have a subscription, but he had an account. He had a Hamina account. Then he would technically have Hamina Network Planner Lite. So if we go to our pricing page, which is just right here on our website, by the way, here's Lite, $0 a month. You can make an account, and if it's your project, like if you make a project, you can do up to 3 APs. And think like plan the Wi-Fi in your house, sort of thing. But if he has a light subscription, aka no subscription at all, he will be able to view this project. He can get in here, he can add notes. He could say, no APs here, for example. He can upload more maps and things like that. So he can actually do quite a bit without having any kind of subscription at all. So that's the first way that you can share the project. Oh, one other thing too. If I wanted Jerry to go and get me site survey data for this project, I could share it with him. And if he has a Hamina on-site subscription, the moment that he adds any survey data to this project, that survey tab will appear right up here at the top. So it just shows up as soon as the data is added to it. And you can have multiple people surveying a project too. If you had a team of 3 or 4 people, they're going to go survey a really big warehouse, share it with all 3 of them. They go on site, they gather the data. You sit back in a comfy chair in the office and just watch as all the data starts popping in once they're done with the survey. So that's the first way you can share projects. The second way you can share projects is by using the reporting function. So let me show you how that works. So first off, there's this bill of materials that generates while you do your design. Now, I don't have a ton of stuff in here. We just have some switches. We have our IDF. We have our cables. We have our 9176s. If you use multiple AP models in here and multiple mounting options and things like that, they'll all show up as separate line items. You can even plan for wired clients as well. Like if you had cameras and things like that, you can drop those in. Those are all going to show up in that bill of materials. So there's my cameras. And if I had a specific model in mind, I could rename it here to do that. These columns are customizable as well. So then from there, there's also the project notes. We could say project notes. And you could say, this is where we put the notes. And you could add images and things like that here. You could put requirements and stuff like that in there. So there we go. There's our notes. So then let's go into our report editor. So I'll click on Create New Report. And from here, you can select whether this is going to be a simulation report or a survey report. In this case, we're going to say simulation. And I'm going to say Demo Simulation Report. I'm all out of ideas. Sorry, everybody. So then we'll hit Create. And now we can start making some customizations to this report. So maybe we want to add a custom logo. So let's say that we want to add like our custom logo there. So here's ours, or my logo here for my fake Wi-Fi company called Morsu. Morsu just means walrus in Finnish, if you were wondering. And then here's our bill of materials. Here's our project notes. Nothing interesting in there, but there it is. Here's our notes and zones and things. So if we went down to the first floor, you could see my scope of the project that I've applied here. And then we have all of our different pages like coverage, secondary coverage. Here's Bluetooth low energy coverage. All the different things that you might want in a report. Oh, we even got Zigbee on this because the 9176 has Zigbee radios on it. So yeah, we didn't even talk about that, but that's in there. So then from here, if you want to, you could rename this. Like for example, maybe at your company, you always say primary coverage. And maybe you want a description of this is where we have one or more access points providing coverage. So you can add some, custom explainers and things like that here if you want to. So then once you kind of have that all done, there's two ways you can go from here. First off, you can generate a PDF. You absolutely can. You'll get a PDF out of it. Great. I never use those. I don't think people look at them. I don't like them. You probably need them though, so I shouldn't make fun of them too much. But that's where you can do that. I just don't personally use it very often. Then there's the share report button. This is the one that I do use all the time. I like this one a lot. So when you click on share report, it's going to give you a password, but I usually disable this and I will just share it directly with a customer. You might want to password protect yours depending on the sensitivity of the project, but I'll create a link to the report. And now this is a link that you can share with anyone. They don't have to have a subscription. They don't have to have a Hamina account. They don't need anything. They just need the link. So here's an incognito window, paste in the link, and here we go. Now we get a fully read-only version of the project. So here's our AP placement, here's our primary coverage map, here's our tertiary coverage. You can even switch to 3D and look at the whole project in 3D. And then, there's like access point lists and, there's our switches and cables, all the locations for those. There's our power and cabling report and all that. So, basically everything is here from the project is here. It is a fully read-only version of the project. We didn't even get into this. I skipped this earlier in the demo, but there's a tool in Hamina called the client view where you can grab a client device and click and drag to move it around on the network, and we will predict when we think that client is going to roam and who we think that client is going to roam to based on its known roaming behavior. So there's some common clients in here like iPhones and Android phones and things like that, Vocera phones. That's also available over here in the reporting as well. So your customer, your manager, or whoever can even drag the client around to see how it's going to roam and what kind of data rates to expect at different points around the map. So that's all included here. So that is my favorite way to share a project, and we've seen a lot of our customers having great success with sharing these web reports, with these web-based reports with their customers instead of doing the PDF. But the PDF's totally there, 100% there. You can totally use it, and if you need to give a deliverable or something like that. Okay. I think that's pretty much it for this demo. So thank you so much for checking this out. I know this was almost an hour of content, but that's about how long it takes me to do, like, sort of like your typical demo with a customer when we get on Zoom or something like that. So I hope this was helpful to you. If you're looking to buy Hamina, you can just go to our website, create an account, sign in, and use a credit card. If you need to do like a purchase order or something like that, we'll give you the ability to do that by yourself from within the app pretty soon. That's coming soon. In the meantime, purchase orders, if you need to talk to somebody in sales, anything like that, just email sales@hamina.com. That's just sales@hamina.com. If you watch this video to see how to use it and you have more questions, a great place to go is to our documentation right here. So this is a constantly improving and evolving set of documentation for pretty much everything you might want to do in Hamina. So check it out if you want to learn tips and tricks and read specifics about how everything works. And if you need help beyond that, then feel free to get in touch with us. You can reach Jerry, Grant, Dan, Andrew, and I all at support@hamina.com. So that's just at support@hamina.com. Almost all of us in that inbox are CWNEs, and so we can answer questions about Hamina. We can answer questions about Wi-Fi design in general. But yeah, really, I just appreciate you taking the time to check out this video, and hopefully I'll see you in a Hamina video really soon. Bye now.